Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the August edition of Molten Music Monthly. It's nearly the end of the summer. We've nearly got the little kids back at school in order to afford us of all the room and space and focus that I need to actually produce anything and do any work. So that's exciting. But what do we have this month? Well, coming up we have a heavenly sequencer from D&D. The Analogue Pocket Gameboy is finally ready to run Nanoloop. The Theoryboard THY333 is another spectacle of scales and illuminated buttons. OSC Pilot is a new touch surface controller as used by Deadmouse. The Softwire press controller lets you lean in to your eurorack modulation. Robaux has a cool little drum machine. Noise Engineering get all DSP with their Desmodus Versio. AVP Ritmobox is a military grade drum machine. Behringer gets into wavetables. Elk Aloha will get us jamming online with near zero latency. Soma Labs blows our mind with the Ornament 8. Korg updates the Volca Sample. Cosmotronic's COSMIX mixer is looking pretty tasty. Future Sound Systems MTX8 is going to pin matrix all of your stuff into your other stuff. But first... Oh yes. I'm awful at vocoding. I thought I might give it a go, right? Because Arturia have released a new firmware update for the Microfreak, and it's a vocoder update. You can vocode with it, which is very exciting. And so I thought I'd have a go. I thought I'd put together a demonstration video in order to ride that wave of interest that Arturia like to create around a newish product or update. I thought I could be in there, man. I could be in there vocoding, doing my disco, doing my disco thing. But I had a go, and I felt so ridiculous that I just couldn't do it. I can't pull it off, right? I'm just not groovy enough. Because the problem is, you're making these lovely chord sounds and stuff like that, which is that's all fine. That's all. See, the problem, I'm doing it already. I'm starting to try to sing. I'm trying to sing along to the stuff that I'm playing, and then I'm not, and then I'm out, and then I'm not really know what I'm playing. I mean, the point is that you're using your voice to modulate, not to actually sing. So I don't need to sing. It doesn't matter what I sing. It's always going to be the same chord out of the vocoder. And so you don't need to have the two the same, although if you do, it's easier because you can hear yourself singing and then you're out of tune with what you're doing, and then can you not hear yourself? And then is there a way of doing it where you can not hear yourself, because you can hear yourself through your own skull while you're trying to do something, can't you? Or at least I can. So it gets difficult, and I have no idea how people pull it off, unless of course maybe they're just blasted with the sound of the vocoder so they can't hear themselves. Maybe that's it. Or maybe they're just using some other sound source or getting somebody else to do it. I mean, that's probably easier, I should think, in the great scheme of things. So how have they pulled this off then? Let's just talk about it briefly for a moment before I then climb back into my box of embarrassment. Because the Microfreak doesn't have an input. So how is it I have this microphone plugged in if it doesn't have an input? Well, interestingly, it does have an input via the headphone socket. Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Well, as in the headphone socket is like those sockets you get on a mobile phone, where it has headset and microphone. It's already in there. It has already been in there. They just haven't used it up until now. So what they've done is use the firmware update to enable that section. And now what you need is some kind of TRRS thing to plug into the headphone socket so that you can use the mic and then also use the headphones, although I'm actually just using the regular output, which is the other way. You can do it, I suppose. Now, to celebrate this, Arturia has released a Microfreak Vocoder edition, which is in kind of white, with a bit of a swan motif going on this strip here, which I guess it refers to the gooseneck mic that they've included with that. You know, your classic vocoder gooseneck mic that comes off your machine so that you can vocode without having to use a hand like I am here. If you see what I mean. Anyway, so it has a swan on the front as opposed to a goose. So how does it work? Well, very simply, the vocoder now becomes an oscillator. So you dial it up with your oscillator knob, and then the other three controls, the wave, the timbre, and shape, change what's going on. So I'll talk through this and talk through this all at the same time. So you can change the wave knob, and that goes from sawtooth into kind of a pulse width thing. Do you want a different chord? See, that's a nice chord. So then, yeah, so you can go through a pulse width kind of thing to sawtooth. And then up the top, you've got noise, which obviously gives you a slightly different flavour of sound. It's pointless. I don't know. Is that groovy? And then, let's bring it back to something sensible. Then the wave one gives you either high tones or low tones. High tones, low tones. Maybe I can pull this off after all. Maybe I'm doing myself down. Maybe I do have it. Yeah. Boom, bap, bap, boom, bop. No, I don't think I do. And then the other bit is bandwidth, I think. You hear that change from one to the other. There we go. So, I mean, obviously you can plug other things in. You don't have to use your voice. You can use other things. Except I couldn't work out a way of doing that. I don't have the right sort of cable. You'd need like a TRS cable that then breaks out into microphone and headphone. And although I did have one of those, the sound just seemed to go completely all the way through. As in the modulate, the sound coming from something else to come into modulate was also being passed back out. So I couldn't work out how to make that work. So I don't know. So I don't have the required cables to make it happen. But if you did, you could potentially be vocoding other things. Now, I confess that vocoding is here. As far as I'm concerned, I have no clue as to why it's good, why people like it, or why it's fun. I mean, it's fun in a stupid way, I suppose. Is that fun? I have no idea. Other than trying to be a Cylon or trying to sound like Daft Punk or some old 70s thing, it passes me by. There's too much of me involved in doing too much for me to understand the sound that I'm trying to manipulate and play with. So, you know, I can hear it. I mean, it's over there and I can hear it, but I can't hear it, and you have to talk to enable it, and it's too hard. It's just too much going on in order to achieve a sound that I don't actually particularly appreciate. But on the other hand, if you're a Microfreak owner, then there is the 2.something update is now available for you to download to add to your system, and you can have it. You have a vocode mode, and if you plug in, say, earbuds from a mobile phone that's got a mic attached, you could use it. Off you go. Rock and roll, or disco, or whatever it is. And as I say, there's a white version of this now, which is a special vocoder version with the microphone that clamps onto the back somehow, gooseneck, and off you go. That's probably quite groovy if you're into that sort of thing. But me, personally, it turns out, no, I'm not really. We seem to have had a rush of interesting eurorack sequencers lately, and the most recent one is from D&D, which is probably not Dungeons and Dragons, it's probably something else, and it's called Heaven 16. It's kind of nice, it's like Heaven 17, Heaven 16 because it's 16 steps. Yeah, I kind of like that. So what's cool about the Heaven 16? I don't know. I mean, you've got 16 knobs. You can run it as a single 16-step sequencer or two 8-step sequencers, which is something I kind of like. I really like that in the M185 that you can't see just over there, and the fact that you can split it into two 4-step sequencers. But this is a 16-step sequencer. But this one not only splits out two lots of 8, you also get like a gate bus. You get a main gate output and then you get a gate bus. So as I understand it, you can have an alternative gate pattern. So you've got a pattern of gates going on with your sequence, which you can switch on and off the gates, and then you can switch to an alternative. So it kind of gives you a different rhythm going through, and presumably different melodies depending on which gates are triggering which particular steps. This is all sounding far more complicated than it needs to, I think. So just boiled it down, Heaven 16 steps, or 2 times 8 steps, with an alternative gate pattern bus. And the way the two 8-step sequences work is that they are essentially independent. It's actually a dual 8-step sequencer. Maybe that's a better way to describe it, because then you can have an interplay between the two, one either controlling the other, or one is coming along after the other to give you 16, or two at the same time. Yeah, so that's the Heaven 16 then, really poorly explained from a D&D. And I've not come across D&D before in terms of eurorack, and they do have quite a range of interesting modules, not least of which is the Elvis filter and the Lord of the Wah. So regardless if these are any good or not, the names are spot on. Now the Analogue Pocket is a futuristic reimagining of the Game Boy from Nintendo. The idea is that it's using modern technology to shrink it down to a gorgeously designed little slab of portable gaming that will take not just the original Game Boy cartridges, but also other cartridges from other manufacturers like Sega and stuff. And although that doesn't seem initially interesting, unless you're really into handheld portable gaming, then I could tell you, no, it is interesting, because it also comes with something called Nanoloop. Now, I've struggled to get underneath Nanoloop to work out exactly what it is or what it's doing. Demos are few and far between, if you can find any at all. But from what I can gather, Nanoloop is a 4-channel 16-step sequencer that was originally built into a cartridge to run on the original Game Boy. It's since then been ported to other bits and pieces, and now it finds itself on the Analogue Pocket. And the makers of this device are using it as a bit of a feature. It's a bit of a feature, they say. They've also included a MIDI output expander for the Analogue Pocket to allow you to sequence other external gear. You see the steps on screen as 4 4x4 grids, and it's sort of lovely the way it chews its way across stuff in a very sort of chiptune 8-bit. It's like you're playing Caterpillar or something. It's just crawling about on your screen as different things happen, and each step you can attribute all sorts of different parameter changes and obviously MIDI changes, and it will use the internal synthesizer, or you can route it out to something else. Obviously with such a cool little device it's going to cost an absolute fortune, but hey, at least it's there and at least you can do things with it. Should be available next year, but they are taking pre-orders now. Theoryboard are back, and this time it's the THY333. Is there another way of saying that? I don't know. Just gonna go with the information that we have. Now, Theoryboard was a big Kickstarter launch from a year or so ago, where you got this extraordinary illuminated collection of buttons. That the idea was, it's yet another one of these ideas to try to make learning music or making music easier. How lovely. What we want really is for music to have absolutely no effort whatsoever. That, I think, is the ideal. So it seems to be from controller manufacturers. But anyway, this one, the idea was that it was supposed to teach you music theory as you played it. You get a load of buttons. On one side you've got chordal structures, the other side you've got melody, which are retained within those chords. So you have this relationship between these two parts of the keyboard or button board or theory board, I suppose it is. What always rubbed me out the wrong way with the original one is the fact that it was called Theoryboard as opposed to, I don't know, Sparkle Board or Dazzle Music Jam, or I don't know, anything other than the extremely educational and very dull term Theoryboard, which for my money seems to just push everybody away immediately. Anyway, so this one's called the THY333, which does absolutely nothing to improve the naming of something other than to make it completely mysterious. What is this? Well, it's kind of a revamped, evolved version, taking everything they've learned from the first Kickstarter they did, and they've invested that into a new instrument, which is more compact, probably with more lights and more colours, I suspect, but it does a similar sort of thing, where you've got chordal structures on one side. You press a button, it creates a chord. And on the other side, you've got the notes which are relevant to that. The idea being is you can't possibly play a wrong note, which is awesome. But of course, we all know that it's the wrong notes which are the best ones. But then what can you do? A few years ago, the unique selling feature of this was the fact that it was all the scaling. It was the fact you could choose every sorts of scale, and you've got chords and you've got notes, and so you can't go wrong. However, that sort of approach has appeared in lots and lots of controllers ever since then. All the Native Instruments ones, all the Arturia ones, all the Novation ones, they all have scaling inside so that you can just choose a scale and never play a wrong note. So the uniqueness of the Theoryboard is perhaps now being absorbed into a lot of other controllers, which can also act as a regular piano keyboard. Is a bunch of buttons going to be easier to learn than a regular piano keyboard? Maybe. Maybe, but it's not very transferable to other situations or to other synthesizers or whatnot. You're always going to have to carry your Theoryboard with you in order to access other devices. OSC Pilot. This is interesting. This is right up my alley, and I confess that I haven't really looked at it in any depth, although I certainly will, because it's the sort of thing which could work brilliantly on the old Surface here. You know, that Surface thing that I'm really into, that I don't do anywhere near enough videos on, that sort of thing. So the OSC Pilot is apparently a piece of software that's been refined over the last few years through use of famous big-headed DJ Deadmouse. Why do I keep getting that wrong? Anyway, what is it? So it's a software touch controller. So if you have a touchscreen or a hybrid laptop that has a touchscreen, you can run this and it comes up as a piece of software, as like an overlay, and you can drag and drop in all sorts of different controls and design your own controller. That's the cool bit. The cool bit is that you can have whatever controller you want, because you can just add more faders and more knobs without having to buy into some kind of modular hardware thing or some other expensive device. It's just one piece of software. You design the interface that you want to run whatever software you're running. So you could create a virtual front end for your synthesizer or for your DAW or for your video software, for whatever you like. So that's quite cool. I've played with these things a lot over the years. Things like the emulator software, which became Chameleon in particular, is the one that springs to mind. And it's always had enormous potential if only the way to design and edit things within it were easy, and also the connection between that and what you're trying to control was easy. Those things tended to be kind of hard. So I'm fascinated to know how well this is going to run, considering it's new and it's new on the scene and it's actually been in use about the place. So I can't tell you a whole lot about it right now, other than I will dig into it, and in a month or two I'll do a bit of a feature and a review on it. So that's exciting. The Softwire Synthesis Press. Now, as I was writing this up, I sort of looked at it and then looked at it some more, going, well, what is it? It's this chunk of wood, right, sticking out of a eurorack module. What are you supposed to do with that? Press. Apparently it takes inspiration from the Ondas Martineau, the Theoryvox, and the Analog Systems French Connection. I don't really know what any of those things are, but that sounds quite exciting. But my understanding of this chunk of wood is that you lean on it, you push on it, and it has sensors in the back, very simple mechanical type sensors that are creating the modulation or sending out or generating the CV that you then put through your stuff. So it's like, what is it like? It's just giving you an organic, a very human way of touching modulation. So rather than turning a knob up, turning it down, you're kind of applying pressure to something. And there's resistance to that. And so you can find within there a proper way to modulate something in a very human, a very interactive way. And that could be very cool indeed. I have something here called the Light Strip from Sound Machines, which perhaps does a similar thing, but it's only following your finger up and down a strip, but you can create and develop a certain amount of human interactive modulation with that. And I guess it's a similar thing. It's a bit like introducing aftertouch into Eurorack, or a little bit of MPE, all of those sorts of things, but it's only creating a couple of axes of modulation. But Very interesting. Robaux has a new little drum machine out. They're calling the LL8, or kind of the little brother of the SWT16, which is a big button trigger sequencer. This is a little one with little buttons, but it's actually really, really cute. Quite gorgeous. Nice little lights in the background, dark. I kind of really like the matte feel that Robaux have been going for recently. Their modules just look phenomenal, and this is no exception. You have 16, actually you have 20 buttons on the front, and then you have a ring of 8 outputs. So it's an 8-channel trigger sequencer, I think. Yeah, with 16 steps per channel. So you've got a 4x4 grid. The 4 buttons at the bottom are for features and functions and bits and pieces, but the other 4 you just tap in what you want your drums to fire on, and then they'll come out of the various outputs depending on which channel that you're on. You can mute things and throw in fills and stuff, chain things together to create songs. It's just simple, small, compact, and incredibly useful for drum programming. There's also a MIDI expander for it, so you can take stuff out and start chucking that into external gear. Very cool in a small, compact kind of drum way. Desmodus Versio, I think. Yeah, that'll do. It's the Vampire Bat, I think. It's something like that. Noise Engineering, you know how I love their naming, their nomenclature. It's fascinating. So what do we have? We have the first digital reverb from Noise Engineering. Most of their stuff is previously to this is all about noise and crackling and awesomeness. Now they're looking for beauty within a new range, or at least a new DSP platform, into which they could be running all sorts of different things. The first release is this reverb and synthetic tail generator, they're calling it. Well, of course they would, because it's not just going to be a normal reverb, is it? No, this is going to be something odd, something different, something kind of delicious. Now, I think, if I'm right, on the back, yeah, it's actually based upon the Electrosmith Daisy. Why is that interesting? Well, we saw this at NAMM last year. It's a platform for running and prototyping digital eurorack modules. And you can run, I think, pure data or some other programming language into it in order to design what it is you're going to do. Now, I saw one of these on the back of the Surface from Qubit. I've got this new Surface module that I talked about last month. And on the back is Electrosmith Daisy. On the back of the Noise Engineering Desmodus and Versio is Electrosmith Daisy. How interesting! Well, I don't know, that's interesting to me anyway, that they're both based on that same hardware, and that hardware has become a platform for people to create awesome Eurorack modules on. That's fantastic. I like that a lot. So what does this do? Well, rather than just giving you a big reverb, sort of an emulation of a room, instead it generates synthetic tails through the manipulation of half a dozen or so parameters. So it kind of starts off as some kind of delay, then as you increase the density it then sort of turns into reverb, and then you create the space within it, and then that disappears off into something else. It sort of becomes a swarm. It becomes a whole range of different possibilities under the guise of perhaps a little bit of reverb. But what of course is awesome about it is that it has the noise engineering workflow, in that you have no clue what's supposed to happen or what goes on. You're just supposed to explore your way through it, and that makes it exciting. So you haven't just got wet, dry and decay, you've got other things. You've got regeneration controls, you've got density controls, blending controls, you've got a high and low pass filter in there, as well as an internal LFO for modulation. And because it's a DSP platform, there's a number of reverb versions or styles or whatever that you can choose from. You can select different things, load different things in, and then mess with those in different ways. And it also means that it's upgradable with other firmware. So hopefully in time Noise Engineering will be producing some more ideas that you can stuff into it and use the same front panel and controls for. Very, very interesting. And the whole Vampire Bat vibe comes from the fact that they're going to be donating some of the proceeds from the Desmodus Versio to Bat Conversation to Bat Conversations to Bat Conservation International. Ritmobox is a 5-channel drum synthesizer, drum machine thingy with 8-step sequencing and MIDI built in. They're going to make 9 they are, so if you want one, you've got to get it in quick. I imagine they're already gone but it's made in a fantastic military green. It looks like you could run a Soviet tank over it without it falling apart, and I say Soviet because it's by AVP out in Moscow, and they make these sort of stunningly Soviet era style synthesizers and boxes and bits and pieces, and they're just great. I mean, they're meaty, chunky, full of character, full of noise and possibility, and what's not to love about any of that? And it couldn't really get simpler. You've got 3 sound generators which you can control and move about in an analog style into any kind of noise that you like, and then you've got a close and open hi-hat, which seems to be a slightly separate thing, doing separate things, and you just immerse yourself in those 5 sounds and go to town. Really not much else to say about it than that, I think. Hopefully, if enough people are interested, they will make some more, because it looks like a fun box. I really must get something by AVP one of these days. One of these days. So a bit of Behringer then. They have released some images of what they are calling, get this, the BBG Wave. That's quite funny. BB, because it's Behringer as opposed to PPG Wave, which is what it's based on. So it's based on the classic big blue PPG Wave wavetable synthesizer, the synthesizer that brought us all of those digital sounds back in whenever it was that they were made, and has been a massive influence over synthesizers ever since. And so Behringer have taken on the whole thing. They've shrunk it down. I mean, the original PPG was about this deep. It was as deep as it was wide, really. Whereas this is, the panel on it seems to be smaller than the actual keyboard. So they really have shrunk this fella down. They've got all sorts of engineers in working on this, all sorts of people who know what they're doing to work on the software and the firmware for it. So by all accounts, it should be as close and near as damn it to a PPG as anyone could ever wish for. Now, I remember the PPG plugin that came out that Wolfgang did many years ago, and it was all just sort of a bit clangy, it's great if you like that sort of thing. For me, wavetables tend to be a bit clangy, a bit edgy, a bit... No, I don't mean edgy in a, oh, that's really edgy, nice way. I mean edgy as in a, ooh, that's right on the edge of scratching your fingers down boards and stuff. But then, I have a love-hate relationship with... No, I don't have a love-hate relationship with wavetables. I don't really have a relationship with wavetables. I can sort of take them and can leave them. I'm not passionately involved with them either way. I respond somehow, in my gut. I visually respond to analog sounds or analog style sounds. Wavetables, I don't know. I feel I have to work a lot harder in really trying to love that sound, perhaps. But who cares what I think? It's the PPG that we're interested in. So what do we know about it? Nothing. It looks like it's supposed to look, other than its depth being extremely lacking, other than lacking in depth. It looks like it does the job. They're going to ace it, I imagine. The struggle we have at the moment is that Behringer are promising so much, and we're not quite receiving it. And it is wearing people down dramatically, I think. Obviously none of it's been helped by the COVID thing, but people are kind of getting a bit fed up. What they did give us recently is the RD6. Oh, look at a little drum machine that isn't the RD9 that they've been promising for about 2 years. No, it isn't. It's the RD6. So somehow they can squeeze out an RD6 in a dozen different colours, but they still can't seem to finish the RD9, which apparently is the one everyone is waiting for. The other thing they can't seem to finish is the Oberheim, the UBXA, or whatever it is they're calling it. Fantastic analog polysynth that we all want to play jump on, and we're all going to love it. It will sound great, but it's still not there yet. We're still waiting on it. And they keep talking about the CS80, and in fact they released another image of the voice card from a CS80 saying, oh, look what we're working on now. We thought you were working on that a year ago. You only just started working on it. Oh, geez. When you're looking at Behringer's time, his schedule, you've got to think like 5-6 years ahead. What's the point of announcing all these things when it's going to just take years? And every time, it's like every time Behringer announces anything, anywhere at all, on Facebook and stuff like that, it's just a constant list of, where's my RD9, where's my RD9, where's my OBX, where's my CS80, you promised me, and all those sorts of comments. But they're their own worst enemy for that. I think it's, in some ways, Behringer just needs this attention. It's like, oh, we haven't said anything for a while, we better put something out. All right, we're working on our copy of the Jupiter 8, here you go, and it won't come out for 10 years. But they just need to get that information out there, or at least that's what they feel. I think they could just be a little bit more reserved. I mean, now what we've got is the 2500 eurorack modules that are starting to pop up. You know, they've stuck them on their just implausibly terrible website. You've now got individual modules on there that you can't find, that you're struggling to browse through everything to try to work out, and then they give you like 2 bits of information on it. It's a dual envelope, they say. Yeah, really? And then there's a picture of some bloke playing with some other instrument, and then some more information about it. I don't get it. I don't get these people. So anyway, so 2500 modules are also starting to drip out, but they don't seem to again be in any sort of coherent way. God, I could go on about this. You know, I just can't quite wrap my head around it. I don't understand why Behringer aren't selling the System 100. Why they're not selling the System 55. They're just letting these modules kind of drip out, and people are sort of picking them up and buying them and putting them in their systems. But they need to sell it as a system, as a machine, as a look, all these things together, and then, you know, perhaps you need 2 of these and 1 of those and 3 of those in order to get it to work properly. I feel that they're not taking the care. They put all their energy into announcing something and showing something and feeling really cool about that. There's less energy involved in actually delivering it, and then there's less and less energy in actually showing people what to do with it or what it's for after the event. It's weird. I really feel they need to shift their thought process, their way of doing things, so that there's less emphasis put on the R&D, at least on the public face. We need to know less about what they're coming up with, and we need to know more about the products they actually are releasing. Their focus needs to be there. They need to be doing tutorials on how to spec and run a System 100 system or a System 55 system. That's what they need to be doing, I think. Same with the 2500. I mean, why would you buy individual 2500 modules? Wouldn't you want the 2500? Speaking of which, where's the 2600? I see. Your voice just starts to elevate when talking about Behringer, because, you know, whatever you think of them, they have the potential to provide us with extraordinary instruments, and we all, to some degree, not everybody obviously, but many of us get enthused and passionate and interested in that, because I mean, gee whiz, I could actually have something which sounds an awful lot like a 2600. That could be very, very interesting. But when? How? When? Why? Where? I mean, it's taken them longer to do that than it is for me to build my Deckar's Dream. In fact, yeah, I will swear now, right, that I would have finished my Deckar's Dream before they released the CS80. Yeah, okay, I'm making that commitment right now that that's going to happen. So anyway, so yeah, Behringer got some stuff, might come out. We'll see. Awesome. Right, here's another one of my little pet things that I like talking about, I like ranting about, of course, obviously, and that's online jamming. Yay, online jamming, we love to do it. It all happens in real time. We're all in a Zoom, we're jamming, we're having a band, it's fantastic. There's live streams out there, everyone goes wild. It's the future of live performance, except that's not actually what ever happens. We saw this with the recent Microsoft fiasco of Resurface, where they attempted to do a live gig on their now defunct live streaming channel thing that was all pre-recorded and sort of drove us a bit nuts. It was a little bit live. It was half live, the same as anyone can be half live, singing along to something on the internet, but it wasn't a live band performance. That's what we want. Now, there's another one that's coming along that says that they're going to do that. They're going to do that. It's Elk Audio. Now, Elk Audio have produced this audio OS, which which we can never seem to find to do anything with. They say, we've got this awesome, really super fast audio OS. It's fantastic. It can run VST plugins and all sorts of things. And everyone goes, oh, yeah. What does it run on? Well, no, that's up to you. You build something to run it. And people go, well, I've got other things to do, to be honest. So no one has actually come along and grabbed hold of this audio OS and put it into something useful, at least as far as I can tell, so far. And it has an enormous a lot of potential. It just needs to find itself something to do, something to latch onto, something to actually make better in the world. So while we're all thinking about that, they've snuck it into a network box in order to try to offer online, proper, in-time jamming. Is that going to work? I don't know. It's difficult to know. It's a bit mysterious at the moment. Because in the promotional videos you've got lots of lovely people playing guitars, playing drums, listening, seeing themselves on the video link, and it's all happening awesomely in sync and on time. And that's awesome. But what you don't see is how that actually works. Where's the box that is doing it? Now apparently there is a box. It's a network box that plugs directly into your network router. Can't go via Wi-Fi, too much latency. Latency is a key factor. It's a little box, goes into your network socket, and you have to connect yourself directly to that. So it's not over USB or anything else. You plug your guitar directly in this box. So bang goes all of your effects and monitoring. Anyway, plug your synth in there, plug your saxophone into there, and that squirts you up over the internet, trying to bypass all of the usual latency that you would find in running something on your computer or through software and all those sorts of things. So okay, I mean, that has some legs. It reckons it's less than 1 millisecond latency of the actual OS itself. And so the idea is that you're placing yourself at the fastest possible point between two places over the internet. And so if there is a little bit of latency, which is common and normal in everyday life, then you should be able to cope well enough with that. And it should be possible to jam. I don't know. Maybe. This box is mysterious, and I've asked them about it. I said, "What? Tell me about the box." And they don't have any photos. Why? We have photos of everything. People have photos of their food and their feet. Why don't we have photos of really important boxes that we plug things into? Don't get it. Apparently it has stereo in and out, and it has an ADAT in and out so that you can run multi-channel through it. Multi-channel I think is less interesting than perhaps having a microphone socket or a guitar socket and a headphone output. Otherwise, you're probably going to be running through your door before you go into this box and then out over the internet. So why bother going through this box at all if it's going to add 1 millisecond of latency? Why not just go straight over the internet? But then you need some kind of protocol which is holding the whole thing together, and I guess that's what the Audio OS, Elk Audio OS, is trying to provide. I don't know. See, the proof of these things is in it actually happening before your eyes. Seeing people plug things in and then making it happen. Promotional videos where you're not actually seeing the tech in use are a waste of bloody time. It drives me nuts. It's nice seeing people be able to jam along together in near latency, but without the vital connections of what is actually going on, it could be anything. It's not something you can trust or really believe. And I would like them to convince me that this is possible. Anyway, we'll see. Why don't I just check, just in case they've since now released a thing. I mean, one of the things that was slightly had me worried was that they talked about latency within so they talked about latency within the marketing, and they said things like, the important thing is not that it's low latency, is that it's stable latency. And between your two boxes at either end, they maintain absolute stable latency between the two, because that's what musicians need to play along with. Kinda, because that says to me that they're saying, oh yeah, of course there's latency. There's acres of latency. Of course there is. It's just that it's stable now, and that makes it easier to play along. Sure, I can appreciate that. But if you're trying to drum or trying to strum, and it's a bit laggy, that's going to be hard. So have they done it? Have they not? I don't know. It's called Aloha by Elk, and we're just going to have to work out and wait and see whether it actually does provide us with the opportunity to be in different parts of the world and to jam on the internet in real time, live streaming. That's what we're after. We shall see. In another life, I can see myself getting really into Soma Labs stuff. In this current life, I just don't think my brain is large enough to cope with what it offers. It's too cerebral, it's too out there, it's too enormous, it's too free. I'm too tied up in knots and, you know, hemmed in on all sides by too much responsibility, too many things in my life, you know, kids, home, work. I just can't do it. I think in order to properly embrace something from Soma Labs, you've got to set yourself free. You've got to just run out the door and keep going, find that mountaintop, sit down and embrace Soma Labs and everything that they're offering to you. The current new thing is called Ornament 8 and it's some kind of sequencer. It doesn't sequence as much as describes behavioural possibilities. You describe some behaviour over here, you then link that to another identical thing with different behaviour described, and the first one will come up with some kind of answer and then give it to the next one, which will go, ooh, and it will ponder it and then move it about and then it will give it to the next one. The next one will go, ah, and so on. And every time it moves, it kicks out a bit of stuff that might or may not control a bit of gear that you have. It's amazing. It's amazing. I have no clue how to even articulate it any more than that. What I do love, crocodile clips. Yeah, I love crocodile clips. Those are great. Like all of those, but you don't have to just use crocodiles. You got a crocodile to normal patch cable converter. That's all built in, so you can do that. So that's not a problem. But otherwise, you've got to feel your way through some switches, through some knobs. You've got to describe behaviors. You've got to decide how they interact, how they interplay. And it doesn't step. There's no clock. It does something in a certain amount of time that you can set or not set, and then it moves on to the next thing and does that in a certain amount of time. Very, very cool. I'd love, you know, just give me a room and all of their gear, and I could be done in, I think. Back in the real world, Korg have released an update for the Volca Sample. Is it any good? I have no idea. I think all my thinking about the Soma Labs stuff has just left me unsure as to how to articulate anything. After that, I mean, you know, my mind's been so blown. We've released ourselves from the constraints of the clock and are now floating around untethered in an ether of behavioural possibilities. Is that what the Volca Sample is all about? I doubt it. I doubt it. It does have some new sounds though, and it has a new way, or a better way, of loading up your own samples, which has got to be a good thing. One would thought. They've put in a micro USB port. Why wasn't that there before? I don't know. So you can now connect it to your computer and run their editor, librarian, sample loader thing, and stick your own samples in much, much easier than it did before. They've also doubled the memory so you can load much larger samples. Other than that, it's exactly the same pretty much as it was before. The COSMIX from Cosmotronic. Yeah, I like this. This is a bit more like it. I understand it, well, I think. It's an 8-channel stereo eurorack mixer. We've got, I think, 4 mono channels and then a pair of stereo channels. There's a stereo bit. It's got an aux bus for sending out to effects, although no return. So you probably have to use one of the stereo channels for the return on the aux, which is a shame, but it's something which mixers do. So maybe you could see it as a 4-channel mono mixer with a stereo channel, and then you've got a stereo return for the aux. Maybe that's how you do it. Or maybe you buy 2 and then mix one into the other. I don't know, maybe it just grows organically, somehow meshing into each other through some kind of behavioural science. Anyway, I don't want to keep going down the crazy. So what this is just a 6-channel mixer where a couple of them have to be stereo channels. But there's more to it than that, because at the master output there's also a lovely overdrive distortion circuit. It comes with 2 faders, one to control the high tone, one to control the low tone saturation. They say it works very much like a dual band maximizer. which does sound pretty interesting. And each of the channels can either come up to sort of unity or get pushed into that overdrive circuit as you push the fader up. I wonder if they'll do a longer one, because it's just not quite enough for me, because I sort of have the ideal mixing situation with the Tex Mix from Tesseract Modular, and that is certainly the best solution that I've come across for a eurorack mixer within the rack. But it does and it doesn't. I've always got my eye open for something else, but I need more than the 6 channels that the COSMIX is offering. But also on the website they do talk about an expander, or at least an expander port on the back, and I wonder whether something extra would come along. Don't know, interesting. Anyway, it's a cool little mixer, distortion on the output, sort of maximising stereos, auxes, that kind of thing. Nice, looks like it works nice. I quite like their stuff and their style. So go and check that out. And finally, finishing us off this month is Future Sound Systems and the MTX8. What is it? It's a desktop pin matrix is what it is. What an amazing thing, right? It's a box, right, with an 8x8 pin matrix. What does that do? Well, all right, the idea is you've got 8 inputs coming in, you've got 8 outputs. Your inputs are on one axis, say that axis, your outputs are on this axis, like that. And then you've got a grid of 8x8, 64 points. Every time you put a pin in, it connects those 2 points up. So that input to that output. And you think, oh, that's easy enough. Well, why don't you just plug your input to your output? The thing you actually want to go into. Yeah, but this is far more versatile than that, you see. Because I could put a pin into input 1 and then all of the outputs. And suddenly my one input coming in is going to 8 different destinations. Why do I want that? Well, I might be going through a delay pedal, might be going through a reverb pedal, might be going to some other modulation, might be going to a recorder, might be going, I don't know, something to modulate something. I mean, you're unlikely to go 1 to 8, honestly, aren't you? But a combination of these two going into that one and that one, this one going to that one, this one going to that effect, and this one going to that effect, and this one going to that effect. Fantastic. You can route stuff from whatever to whatever in whatever combination of those that you require. This is the sort of modulation matrix that you find on things like the EMS Synthy, on old synthesizers. It's a fantastic way of routing modulation from one place to another. But it doesn't have to be modulation, it doesn't have to be control voltage. It can be, but it could also be audio. And the Future Sound Systems box allows you to do this with whatever you like. Audio, CV, it's on your desktop, you route it between different synths coming in, synths going out, effects, all over the place, into your modular, back out again. Fantastic. They've even left the top blank so you can write on it in Chinograph. Yeah? So you can then rub it out and write on it again. Brilliant! That's what you want. And it's not only that, but they've also built in a tube screamer into the first channel. Well, see, there's 2 versions. There's the MTX8 standard, which doesn't have anything like that. It's just 8 in, 8 out, off you go, doodle flip. Then there's the MTX8 guitar, which has a flipping tube screamer on the first channel. Why would you want anything else? Why is anyone going to buy the standard? I don't understand the point of the standard. Nobody wants that. Everyone's going to want the one that has a flipping tube screamer on the first input. So you can plug your guitar directly in and you're screaming away, or your synth directly in, or anything directly in, and you've got this chunky distortion that you can run on everything. I guess if you just want clean, then that's what the standard version is for. But otherwise, I think everyone's going to buy the guitar version. I mean, it's only 20 quid more, so why on earth wouldn't you? So an enormously useful box that's going to have cables coming out of every single side all over the place to allow you to route stuff from one place to another. Fantastic. Absolute genius. What a great idea. And what a fabulous thing to have. I just would like them to do it in more colours than white. But then if you're writing on it, yeah, it's got to be white, hasn't it, I suppose. The pins, though, are quite colourful, so that's nice. So there you are, that will do it, I think, for August. We're nearly, as I say, at the end of this summer. I feel like we've had the summer now for about 5 or 6 months. But as, well, at least in the UK, we're trying to get kids back to school, it should hopefully free me up a little bit more so that I can increase the rate of videos and other bits and pieces that I'm doing. Because I have You know, my backlog since the start of lockdown is huge. Things have just been going really slow because I have kids and family here, things to do. I have to be involved in all of that. So it's been difficult to focus precisely on work, and then we've had holidays, been away a bit of camping. I've been really into paddleboarding as it happens, and that's been awesome. I've been doing that most of the time down at a little river not far from here, which has been fantastic. So, but anyway, all of those things eat into my time, and once we chuck over into September, October, hopefully I'll start to be able to increase the rate at which I'm producing videos, because I seem to be saying this every month, and that coming up I have a build of the Befacco Perkle and then a review of the Ratchet here. I've still got those two things to do. They seem to have been sitting on my desk now for ages. Other things keep getting in the way, and then I just don't have the time, and then I have to do something else, and another one of these comes round, so I have to... Anyway, that's the plan. But just before because there's always something in the way, just before I start that, I've got the POM 400 over there, the Teenage Engineering one, that to review. That's the last thing I have to do before I get onto the Perkle from Befacco and get into a bit more percussion with the Ratchet. That's the plan. I'll get there, but then something else is bound to come along and I'm going to have to do that instead. But we'll see. Working hard, I promise. Working dead hard at it. Oh, there was one last thing, and that was the 2HP pluck. Now, if you saw my live stream of the Surface from Qubit, what a beautiful instrument that is. I did put it next to my 2HP pluck. And I said before when I ordered it that I might give it away. So I think I am. I'm just undoing it over here while I'm talking to you, because I'm so multi-taskable. Here we go. Can I get that cable out of here? Yes. Ugh. So here it is. This is my 2HP pluck. It's been nice. I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. It's featured in a lot of my music making over the last year or so. And it is a great, tiny little module. But the Surface has come along now, and that's essentially replacing this with far more wide range of sounds. And so I'm going to give this away. I'm going to give it away. Kinda going to give it away. Sort of. So how do you get your hands on this then? Well, it's very simple. I'm going to go away when I finish this and post a post onto Patreon about the 2HP pluck and how you can be in for the prize draw of getting it. So what's Patreon? I see. Well, there's the catch. See, Patreon is a wonderful place where you can sponsor people making content like what I am doing. And there's a bunch of lovely people over there who give me a couple of dollars every month to aid me in my mission of creating fabulous videos for fabulous people about fabulous bits of gear. So I'm going to post it on that. So if you want to take part in the prize draw, all you have to do is comment on that post. In order to be able to comment on that post, you'll have to become a patron. I'm really sorry. So you'll have to give me at least $1 once for 1 month. And that's the way you get into it. So, I mean, all those sorts of things are probably illegal. So I'm not really doing any of that. All I'm saying is that I'm going to give this away to somebody. If you fancy getting your hands on it, then just comment on this particular post on Patreon. That would be great. And then I'll stick them into a hat, and at our live stream, which I think is going to be this Sunday, the bank holiday weekend. Why the heck not? Sunday night, nobody's doing anything. I'll put you all in a hat and I'll draw out a name and that person can have it. Let's hope you live in the UK. If not, I'll just have to cope with it. So that's the plan. So come. Try it out. Come onto Patreon, see if you can stick on a couple of dollars, and then forget about that for the rest of your life and let it just trickle in towards me. That would be ace. And I would really appreciate the support, of course, and you could potentially walk away with one of these. I mean, the odds are high because there's only going to be half a dozen of you. So that'll do us, I think. And join us on Sunday for the live stream, and we'll be able to chat about all these things and see where we get to. So thanks for watching, and in the meantime, go and make some tunes.